Democratic opponent
Yeah.
who has made this whole race about Israel when I've made it about Michigan. You know, look, I think people are sick and tired of the division.
Whatever differences we have, and there might be some big differences, they're way smaller than the differences we have with Mike Rogers.
We're going to beat either one. We've got a plan for either one. If you think about this election as a change election, 60% of Michiganders believe the state is going in the wrong direction.
It's a big day in Michigan as the Democratic primary looks to be a matchup that El-Sayed, Abdul El-Sayed, is going to walk away with. Let's bring in our panel, White House Journal, White House reporter Philip Wegman, Democratic strategist Megan Hayes, and Josh Holmes, co-host of the Ruthless podcast and former chief of staff to Senator Mitch McConnell. So, Megan, start us off here because you told us that this wasn't going to happen.
No, I think that this is going to be a very tough race for the general. I obviously have been friends with Haley and worked with her for a very long time. I think she'd be the better candidate against Mike Rogers. I think that her views align more with the state of Michigan overall. Mike Rogers lost by 14,000 votes to Alyssa Slotkin. It is going to be a very tough climb for El-Sayed to build a coalition that beats him. It is going to be a challenge going into November if he wins tonight.
But I mean, there's no question that he is going to come out of this the Democratic nominee. He went in to the day with a 10-point lead. Rogers, by the way, has got less than a half a point lead in the general matchup. El-Sayed outspent Haley Stevens 15-1, according to Chris Cillizza. The governor, the Democratic Senate leader, endorsed Stevens. I mean, this is the DSA ascendant, even though he says he is not part of the DSA, but it's certainly socialism.
It's getting pretty hard to hide.
Because a lot of his policies track with that.
Yeah, it's getting pretty hard to hide who the new identity of the Democratic Party is. We were told reliably that this was a feature of Mamdani and to the confines of Manhattan, maybe a couple of congressional primaries out there. Now you have in the heart of the industrial Midwest an ideology, well, in a Senate race, by the way, that Democrats absolutely have to win in order to win the majority, an ideology that fundamentally doesn't believe that America is a very good place. It fundamentally rejects the economic system that has risen more people out of poverty than socialism, all of socialism combined, ever could. And 25 years removed from 9/11, all of a sudden, America's strongest and longest ally in the Middle East is the problem, not radical Islam. This is a wild juxtaposition. If you had told me 10 years ago that Democrats would land here as their mainstream, quote unquote, Senate statewide candidates, I would have thought you were joking.
Yeah, well, it's definitely spreading across the country, despite Megan's hopes that it wouldn't. Rogers, as you saw there, in what he said, says that El-Sayed represents a special type of secret sauce of crazy. But it's not limited to El-Sayed in terms of views that may be out of the mainstream. Francesca Hong, who is going to try to become the Democratic nominee for governor in Wisconsin, next Tuesday said this about canceling Thanksgiving. She said, this is right up in Fox Digital, the now deleted post, which was initially made on X in November 2020, drew backlash. Cancel Thanksgiving. Should have done this in 1621, Hong wrote. If it takes a worldwide pandemic for us to realize we should stop celebrating colonialism and the original super spreader event that killed indigenous folk and women, so be it. And she's not backing away from it. This is what she said yesterday on America's Newsroom.
Bringing folks around the table to share conversation and build community is always a good thing. But Thanksgiving is also a time that's incredibly painful for many people in our communities. And so I think I wanted to make sure that people understood that there are multiple views, but views can evolve.
Philip, Thanksgiving is one of the most American things that there is. And now you have these DSA candidates saying, throw it out along with everything else.
No one pays me for my opinions, but I think it's pretty safe to say that Thanksgiving is here to stay. At my house, we celebrate turkey, football, and the good old United States. That said, while we can make fun of some of these DSA candidates for some of these woke, wacky ideas, the larger question is what happened to the Democratic establishment and also what happened to Republicans such that some of these Democratic socialists have legs as candidates. The voters are dissatisfied with the status quo. And you might have a moment in Michigan where Mike Rogers sees this as an opportunity. Certainly, she's easier to beat than Haley Stevens. in a similar way to how Democrats thought a decade ago that Donald Trump would be easier to beat, this could very well be Democratic Socialism's coming out party in the Midwest. And if she is able to, if El-Sayed is able to win there, Republicans could rue this day because it's not just those funny sound bites. There's real dissatisfaction with where both parties are taking the country.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of the Democratic establishment is like a pox on these candidates. They don't represent the Democratic Party, but some mainstream Democrats like Debbie Dingell appear willing to look the other way on candidates like Abdul El-Sayed. This is what she said in America's Newsroom earlier today.
If El-Sayed is the winner, will you endorse him in November?
I will endorse the entire Democratic ticket.
Sayed has said Israel should not exist as a Jewish state.
I categorically won't support that. Israel has a right to exist.
Certain aspects of his policy that she won't support, but she said she's going to support him.
I think that across the board, Republicans have the same issue here. They don't support everything that every Republican believes in. But
let's not do whataboutism.
I'm not playing whataboutism. I'm saying that is
Yes,
happening across the board here. This is an anti-incumbent election for both parties. Debbie Dingell should be supporting the Democrats. She's a member of Congress. What I think the issue here is, why did the Democratic establishment give money to state parties that are allowing DSA candidates to run? They are not Democrats.
Because they know they can win.
But they are not Democrats. They do not hold the same beliefs that Democrats hold. So why then does the Democratic Party and the establishment support them?
So, Josh, I know that the Republicans are looking at this saying, keep it going, but I'm predicting that these DSA candidates and far-left candidates like Abdul El-Sayed are going to perform much better in November than a lot of people think they will.
No, I think you're right. I mean, look, this is going to be an extremely challenging environment for Republicans. Any midterm where you hold all the power is going to have a huge headwind against you. And of course, there's economic numbers that are troubling for Republicans. There are approval ratings that are troubling for Republicans. But I remember doing this 15 years ago with the shoe on the other foot with Republicans. And we left a lot of seats on the table when we nominated candidates that were fundamentally out of step with the electorate that they were running in. That's what Democrats are doing here. What they're doing is running with a whole bunch of tailwinds, nominating people like Plattner and El-Sayed, which is going to be trouble.
In fairness, if we're talking about the Tea Party days, Secretary of State is named Marco Rubio. Ted Cruz is still in the Senate. Mike Lee is still in the Senate. I think that, whether the establishment liked it or not, there was clearly something that the base wanted. And there were a lot of politicians who were mainstream Republicans who made lip service to the Tea Party back in those days. I think the question that remains to be seen here when it comes to this situation is this seriously a liberal Tea Party moment? Or is there actually that fracture in first principles between Democrats and some of these far-left candidates?
The difference being, though, that the Tea Party wanted to adhere to traditional values and traditional institutions in America, whereas DSA wants to tear all of that down.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.